AI is about eliminating work that could be taking time away from the guest. Can this person be ensuring that this experience is the same every single time they come in the door? They were thinking about using AI in stuff like recipe management and, labor scheduling, whatever it is. But ultimately, it comes back to that guest experience. When someone comes in your doors, they need to understand what it is that they're going to, they're essentially choosing their money to spend. For us, what we're trying to enable is to make it really simple to make the decision that you want to make. Everybody wants to have the GM be able to run out and go grab limes last second, right? You've run out, there was an ordering error, it happened, move on. So how do we help enable that? But what we don't want to have happen is GMs getting in the business of filling out expense reports. Right? They're GMs. They're incredible. I've had incredible GMs that have, as I said earlier, shaped my career. It wasn't because of their skill of handing in receipts. So where we feel what we're doing is very important and what we've seen from our clients is very important is let's enable the right decision. And the right decision is being able to make the decision that impacts the guest experience. Ensuring that if something is missing, you can run out and get it. Ensuring that when that happens, you're still capturing receipt, you're GL coding it, you're ensuring that in the back office side of things, that one purchase doesn't stop you from closing the books at the end of the month, because that does happen, right? We see a lot of the times people sharing credit cards or making purchases, and then all of a sudden there's a receipt, but there's no context on it. And so there's an accountant at the end of the month saying, who made this purchase? What was it for? How do I classify it? And that takes me a week and that takes time. And now all of a sudden then following month, we still haven't closed last month. And that becomes a process that continues to snowball and that affects the guest at the end of the day. On top of that, we're looking to get into purchasing and aid outside of, let's say, that GM running away and making a quick petty cash purchase. Right? The purpose of getting higher limits and longer terms is so when something happens, like you've decided to grow from 3 units to 10 units or whatever that growth number is. Well, everybody knows the first impression of that restaurant's very, very important. So if you're sitting there as an owner and you're saying to myself, okay, I want to bring in my staff to do 10 hours more of additional training before we open. But right before that meeting happens or that training day happens, the range breaks. We don't want you to be forced between which decision do I make? Because the right decision is fixing the stove and training the people. And so giving effective tools to easily deploy additional capital, whether that be through higher limits or longer payment terms, encourages operators to make the right decision, the decision that they know they want to make. And we as an operator, or we as a group, we're not here to tell them how to run their business. But what we confidently can say is if we give them the right tools, they will know how to run their business. And going to a effective corporate version of a payday lender to take out a 30% APY loan, right? Or to skim off your revenue for the next 3 months. That's not a way to build sustainable businesses. And I think we all know that. What's hard is finding partners that understand from an underwriting perspective what it means to be a restaurant. And I think that that's where we excel. And I understand that if it's January and your sales are down, you actually might be wanting to open up new locations because that's when you are resource rich in terms of time. So enabling right decisions through tools that are designed to help make that decision immediately and then follow it all the way through is what gives teams the ability to be empowered by the operations that they know they want to do. Something that I saw that was really interesting coming out of COVID was a piece of feedback that I had from Tice's mom, our CEO's mom. I can't remember what dinner we were having. Regardless, we're having all dinner together. And she was talking about the increased sales at one of their specific locations because that location just happened to have someone who was talkative whenever someone called in. And so when COVID happened and nobody had human interaction, what they noticed was a store of all their locations started to have an increase in sales because people would call to have human interaction. And then they'd place an order. And then they'd call and they'd have human order, right? And it would continue. What's really unique about the hospitality industry is hospitality. for most of the time, you can probably make food at home or order food or, satisfy the requirement of eating without going to a restaurant. And yet we still go to restaurants. And I think when I think about this at a larger degree, it's very obvious when you look to the upscale and you look to Michelin star restaurants and the lengths that they will go to for service. But I think what people often forget about is the people who might not necessarily be able to afford a Michelin star dinner. And so we speak a lot about with operators who are especially in the fast casual and QSR space is if you're in, let's say, a lower income area of central United States, well, going to a McDonald's or going to a fast casual location is your restaurant experience. And so that process of coming in the door and talking to someone and taking that order and having that food be provided to you, right? It's eating around other people. It doesn't have to just exist at the upper range of what we provide. In fact, when you provide that service, as you shift down, we work with some really great operators who are operating upwards of 200 units of Jack in the Box, for example. And they talk just the same way about the restaurant guest experience as some of our fine dining clients do as well. It is unanimous across the board. So I think when we talk about AI and the power of AI, there was a conversation that I had when we did a podcast with the CFO of Tucanos, which is a Brazilian steakhouse. And he talks about how AI is about eliminating work that could be taking time away from the guest. And when we talk about, well, what does that mean? It's about, can this person be talking to a guest? Can this person be planning for a guest? Can this person be ensuring that this experience is the same every single time they come in the door? And they were thinking about using AI in stuff like recipe management and, labor scheduling, whatever it is. But ultimately, it comes back to that guest experience. Where I think AI needs to be really understood, though, is it's only as good as the data that you're putting into it. Right. So you need to be able to demystify, to decode, to take that sample data and understand it before you pass it off. AI in itself has no empathy for what you're providing it. And so what we're really trying to do is, if you want to use our data for AI and whatever you do and make better use of your QuickBooks, your Restaurant 365, essentially wherever we're putting this data into, we want to take the messiest data that you will collect, which is credit card data, and make it the most consistent, understood, clear, concise data that you are collecting. Because that investment you made into Restaurant 365, into NetSuite, into QuickBooks, whatever it is, that's where you want that data to become powerful. That's where that data becomes actionable. Right? And that's where that data can be used to make a better experience. We're going to be doing things like getting GMs to stop doing, expense reports on the fly, whatever it is, and empowering better decisions around, making a purchase now between hiring other people. But we're also on a congruent basis going to be taking very hard to ingest, very hard to decode data, making it simple, making it clean, making it real time, not making it come in a bulky batch at the end of the month, so that these systems that you've already invested in, that have taken you months and months and months to get running, become more valuable as well. Because I know confidently that groups like Restaurant 365 will continue to invest in AI. But if you can't give it data, you can't give it that food, that fuel, it's not going to matter as much as you hope it does. And that's why what we're doing, we're very proud about, is saying even these small little purchases, when you GL code it and when it happens quickly, it's going to have that downstream effect. And at the end of the day, the effect you want it to have is a better positive guest experience.